Most people who are thinking about moving to the Antelope Valley automatically focus on Palmdale or Lancasters. Those are the areas that come up the most. Those are the ones you see online. Those are the ones people talk about. And because of that, that's where most people start their search. They start comparing homes, looking at prices, trying to figure out what they can actually afford. And they feel like they're getting closer to making that decision. But here's the problem: they're making that decision based on what they see, not based on what it actually feels like to live there. And that's where people get it wrong. Because I've had so many clients come to me completely set on just one area. They thought they already knew where they actually wanted to live. And then I take them into Quartz Hills, and everything changes. The moment they drive in, they notice something different. It feels quieter. It feels more open. It feels slower. And they always say the same thing to me. Wait, this feels different. And that moment right there is what this video is all about. Because that feeling is what determines whether you're actually going to love where you live or regret that decision later on. So in this video, I'm going to break down the real pros and cons of living in Quartz Hills so you can decide if this is actually the right fit for your lifestyle. I'm Jennifer Espinoza with Casa Espinoza Homes, and I help people relocate to Palmdale, Lancaster, and Quartz Hills. And if you're watching this video, there's a really good chance you're in that stage where you're trying to figure it all out. You're looking at homes, you're comparing all the areas, you're trying to decide what actually makes the most sense for you. And one thing I see all the time is people focusing almost entirely on the house. They look at the price, they look at the size, they look at the features, but they don't stop and think about what their daily life is actually going to feel like in that area. And that's the part that matters the most. Because once you move, you're not thinking about the listing anymore. You're living your routine, your mornings, your commute, your evenings, your weekends. That becomes your reality every single day. So the goal of this video today is not just to show you homes or talk about prices. It's to help you understand what it actually feels like to live in Quartz Hills so you can decide if it actually matches your lifestyle. And real quick, if you are serious about moving to the Antelope Valley, make sure you subscribe, comment, and like my channel because I break all this down so you can make the right decision, not just a quick one. Now let's move on to pro number one, the feel. Let's start with the biggest difference, and honestly, the thing you're going to notice right away when you are coming into Quartz Hills. And that's the overall feel of the area. Because this isn't something that shows up in pictures. You don't see it in the listings, but you feel it as soon as you get there. Compared to nearby areas like Palmdale or Lancaster, Quartz Hills feels quieter, more relaxed, and a little more spaced out. There's less going on around you, less noise, less of that constant movement. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for. It makes your mornings feel calmer, your drives feel less stressful, and your evenings feel easier to just unwind. And that might not actually sound like a big deal at first, right? But over time, that kind of environment really affects how your day-to-day feels. Now, here's the important part. This is either going to feel like a huge upgrade or it's not going to feel like it's enough. Because if you're someone who likes energy, activity, being around things all the time, well, this might feel a little too slow for you. But if you're someone who wants more peace, more quiet, and just a little more breathing room in your day-to-day life, this becomes one of the biggest advantages of living here. And that's why I always tell my clients, don't just look at the house. Pay attention to how the area makes you feel, because that's what you're going to live with every single day. Now let's move on to pro number two, space and privacy. Now let's talk about another big reason people end up choosing Quartz Hills, and that's the space and privacy. And this goes beyond just the size of the house. Because yes, a lot of the homes here are going to give you more square footage, more rooms, more overall space inside the home. But what really stands out is the space around you. Compared to more crowded areas, homes here are typically a little bit more spread out. You don't feel like everything is right on top of you. And that completely changes how your home actually feels when you live in it. It feels quieter. It feels more private. It feels like you actually have your own space, not just inside the home, but outside as well. Now think about your day-to-day for a second, okay? Think about coming home after work or after a long day, and instead of pulling into a place that feels crowded or busy, you're coming into an environment that feels a little bit more open, a little more calm. That makes it easier to just relax. It makes it easier to feel at home. And for a lot of people, that's a big upgrade from what they're used to having. Now again, this actually depends on what you value. Some people don't mind being closer to everything. They actually prefer it. But if you're someone who wants a little more distance, a little more quiet, a little more privacy in your day-to-day life, this is one of the biggest advantages of living in Quartz Hills. Now let's move on to pro number 3. Established communities. Another thing you're going to notice about Quartz Hills is that it feels more established. And what I mean by being more established is it doesn't feel like a brand new area that is still developing. It feels more settled, more consistent, more like a place where people have been living here for a while. And for a lot of buyers, that actually creates a sense of comfort. Because when an area feels established, it feels more predictable. You kind of know what to expect. The neighborhoods feel complete, not like they're constantly changing over time. And that can make a big difference, especially if you're thinking long term. Now compare that to newer developments, where everything is still being built, still growing, still changing. Some people love that, but others prefer something that's already feels so much settled. And that's really what Quartz Hills gives you. It feels like a real community, not just an area that's still coming together. And for a lot of buyers who are looking for stability and a place they can really settle in, that's a big advantage. Pro number 4, less congestion. Another big advantage of living in Quartz Hills is just how much easier your day-to-day routine can actually feel. And that really comes down to less congestion. Now, when people hear that, they usually just think about traffic, right? But it's more than just traffic. It's the overall pace of your day. Compared to busier areas, you're dealing with fewer cars, less noise, and just less on that constant pressure. And that shows up in your routine. Your mornings feel a little less rushed. Your drives feel a little more relaxed. You're not constantly dealing with heavy traffic or trying to get through crowded streets on a day-to-day basis. And even if it's a small difference at first, over time, it actually starts to add up, especially at the end of the day, when you're tired, when you're coming home. And instead of dealing with more stress in your life, you're coming into a calmer environment. And that makes it easier to just unwind. It makes your home feel more like a place to relax instead of just somewhere you sleep. Now again, this does depend on what you're used to or what you prefer. Some people don't mind that busy, fast-paced environment. But if you're looking for something a little more relaxed and a little less stressful day to day, this is one of those benefits that you are going to notice pretty quick. Now let's jump over to pro number 5, hidden gem. One of the biggest things about Quartz Hills is that it really feels like a hidden gem. It's not the first area people look at. And then it's not the one getting all the attention right now. But because of that, a lot of people tend to overlook it in the first place. But the interesting part is the people who actually take the time to look here usually have a completely different reaction. They don't just like it. they connect with it. And that's because this area tends to fit a very specific type of lifestyle. So let me ask you this. Are you someone who values a quieter environment? Do you want more space? Not just in your home, but around you. Do you want your day-to-day life to feel a little bit more relaxed, a little less rushed? Because if that sounds like you, this area starts to make a lot of sense for you. But on the other side, if you prefer being closer to everything, if you like a lot of activity, if you want that fast-paced environment, this might not feel like the right fit. And that's okay, because the goal isn't to find the best area. It's to find the right one for you. And that's why I always say Quartz Hills is not for everyone. But for the right person, it just clicks. Now let's move over to con number 1, less convenience. Now let's talk about the biggest trade-off when it comes to living in Quartz Hills, and that is convenience. Compared to areas like Palmdale, you're not as close to everything. So what does that mean in your real life? If you're going to drive a little more, you're going to be going to the grocery farther, you're going to run errands farther, you're going to even grab food farther. And it's usually not right around the corner as you're used to. And for some people, that's not a big deal at all. They don't mind, especially if they're getting something in return. They're getting more space, more privacy, a quieter environment. But for others, this can feel like an adjustment. And if you're used to everything being close by, if you like being able to just step out and get what you need quickly, this is something you are going to notice pretty quick. And it's not just a one-time thing. It's part of your daily routine. So it really comes down to this. Are you okay trading a little convenience for a different kind of lifestyle? Because that's the balance here. And it also has to be for the right person. It becomes absolutely worth it. Now let's move over to con number 2, older homes. Another thing to keep in mind when you're looking in Quartz Hills is the homes. There is a lot of them that are going to be a bit older. Now that doesn't mean they're bad homes, but it does mean they might feel different compared to the newer construction homes. For example, you might not always get that full open floor plan or that modern layout that you see in newer builds. Some homes may have more defined rooms or layouts that feel a little more traditional. And depending on what you're looking for, that can either be a positive or something you'll want to update over time. The same goes for finishes. Some homes are going to be updated and move-in ready, but others might need a little work, whether that's cosmetic updates or just bringing things more up to date. So the real question here is, what are you comfortable with? If you want something brand new with everything already done, this might not check every list in your box. But if you're okay with a home that has a little character or something you can update over time, then you have more options here to decide. And again, this does come back as trade-offs, because what you're going in return is more space, larger lots, and a quieter, more established environment. So it really depends on what matters to you. Con number 3, too quiet. Now let's talk about something that can be a pro for some people, but a con for others. And that is how quiet Quartz Hills is. Like we talked about earlier, the slower pace, the calmer environment. That's a big reason why people move here anyways. But at the same time, that can feel a little bit too slow. It just depends on your lifestyle, because this is not an area where there's always something going on every single day. You're not surrounded by constant activity. You're not in the middle of everything. And that can feel very different. If you're used to a more fast-paced environment, it really comes down to your personality. If you like being around energy, if you like having things to do nearby, if you enjoy that busier lifestyle, this might feel like a big ship for you. On the other hand, If you do prefer quiet, if you like having space to relax, if you want your home to feel calm at the end of the day, then this is probably going to feel like a benefit to live in. So again, it's not necessarily a negative thing. It just depends on what you're used to and what you're looking for when purchasing a home. Now let's go to con number 4, new community feel. Another thing to keep in mind is that Quartz Hills is not a brand new master plan type of community. So if you've been looking at newer constructions with everything matching, modern designs, and that look really polished, like a uniform look, this area is going to feel a little different. Here, you're going to see more variety, different home styles, different layouts, different levels of updates. And that's just because it's a more established area. Now, for some people, that's actually something they like. They don't want everything to feel the same. They don't want that cookie cutter look. They prefer something with a little bit more character. But if you're someone who really wants that brand new feel, everything modern, everything consistent, this might not match that expectation. So again, this isn't necessarily a downside. It's just something you want to be aware of going in, so you're comparing it the right way. Because Quartz Hills offers a different kind of lifestyle, not a new construction experience. Now let's jump over to con 5. At the end of the day, the biggest thing you need to understand about Quartz Hills is that it really comes down to your lifestyle. This is not one of those areas that works for everyone. And honestly, that's not a bad thing, because every area fits a different type of person. So the real question you need to ask isn't, is Quartz Hills good or bad? The real question is, does this actually fit how I want to live my life day by day? And if you value space, privacy, a quieter environment, then this can be such a great fit for you. But if you prefer convenience, being close to everything, more activity, and a faster paced lifestyle, then it might not feel the same way for you. And that's exactly why I always tell my clients, don't just focus on the house. Focus on how your life is going to feel once you make that move, because that's what you're living with every single day. So overall, Quartz Hills isn't better or worse. It's just different. And for the right person, it can feel exactly what they've been looking for. Now, if you made it this far, you're clearly serious about moving to the Antelope Valley. So make sure you continue to subscribe, share, like, and comment on my videos and channel, because I break all this down so you can feel confident before you make that big move. And if you're thinking about moving to Quartz Hills or anywhere in the Antelope Valley, reach out to me. I'd love to help you figure out what actually fits your lifestyle. And I'll see you in the next video.